Hello to each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in today. And now that you're here, you're part of the Reset with Raven family. So, welcome. Today, I am joined by Louise Valentine. Louise is an award winning wellness expert, competitive athlete, and fierce military spouse who served as a leader throughout the wellness industry. However, it's through experiencing her own unexpected health breakdowns that she discovered her real breakthroughs. Louise knows firsthand what it feels like to be discouraged and lost, and it's her mission to share simple and realistic ways to live a vibrant and healthy life. Welcome, Louise.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Louise, you are clearly very well accomplished and have so many achievements that make you multidimensional. So, as it relates to reset, what has been your latest or most profound reset in your life?
Well, I must say, I started life just so, I just, kind of describe it as my head was in a turtle shell. And I just kind of lived there. I stayed safe. I played small. And once I became a military spouse about 11 years ago now, it truly forced me into unexpected things happening all the time. And we've moved 9 times in 11 years, and it has been an unbelievably dynamic career journey and life journey. So, reset is something I am intimately familiar with, whether or not I want to be. Military life makes it that way. So, most recently, I've been very accomplished postmaster's degree. I've published research. I have worked in public health program design, healthcare technology company leadership, and um, actually in the pandemic, published my first book, The Art of Breaking Through. So, in this journey of publishing, and I have my blog, Breaking Through Wellness, 14 Valentine Project, also going through a reset itself, soon to be Breaking Through Wellness, that I've always maintained as a passion project on the side. Well, now here in life, my most recent reset is really stepping back and asking myself, what makes me come alive in life? And am I truly showing up in the way that I want to impact the world? And my answer to myself was no. So I am experiencing a reset as a result of that self examination.
So, tell us more about, when it comes to what makes you come alive. I want to know what caused you to have that introspection, number one. And then after having that introspection, what did you discover?
So I am currently still right now working for a great company, and I've worked my way up to top leadership, really this great empowered roles. And with that comes the demand of really having to be focused on work and driving home and working all the time for the mission. And when I realized how much time and energy that I was taking away from my family and away from my book and this feeling that I have and this mission in my life to share simple and realistic solutions to live a vibrant, healthy life, I was being pulled away from that true course of impact that I wanted to be on. And also by putting so much energy towards so many different buckets, I was not focusing on my family and showing up vibrant and well and alive for them. So it was this decreased energy over time. It was giving everything 110% and realizing it's time to narrow the focus, prioritize, and really show up alive in my true self. And it's been weeks and, almost months now of asking myself that question. Where am I going with this kind of thing?
It's interesting that you say focus. You hear the the acronym follow one course until successful. But what I heard right before this conversation, right before we started recording, is focus on the critical few. What and be excellent, be great.
Mhm.
And that is the way I want to lead my life. You know, you heard in another common cliche, a jack of all trades and a master of none. And these phrases have so much impact and value. And I think sometimes we don't really think about what that means and how they apply to our lives and how we show up and how we show up at work, how we show up in our family as a mother, as a wife, as a friend. And I think that is super important that you recognize that. Again, I think one of the beautiful things about leadership or personal leadership is self awareness. And you recognize, hey, I'm not showing up the way I'd like to. So, talk to us more about a vibrant, healthy life. What is that, or what does that look like?
So, a couple, core values that I have in any sort of wellness work that I do is keeping it super simple because we're
Mm.
already overwhelmed with so much complicated wellness information, solutions, even in advising senior leadership on wellness solutions. I found if it wasn't simple and if it wasn't practical and realistic, even the most wonderful, impactful information is not going to be applied. So I root the way that I lead and guide others in simplicity. And as you can tell, I don't always do a good job of holding myself accountable to that. So here I am in this exercise of practice what I preach, root myself in simplicity. And like you said, focus.
I like that you talked about simplicity. So I love basketball. And as we're recording this, the NBA playoffs are happening. And a conversation I was having just last night with my dad as we're looking at different teams. And one of our favorite teams, and we live in Georgia, so that should give it away in terms of our one of our favorite NBA teams. They recently went through a coaching change.
Mm,
And one of the things that as we were discussing, as we noticed, is that we wonder, is it that the new coach connected more with the team just because of the way they explain things? So after a lot of the game interviews, you would hear the original coach or the coach that started the season, do a lot of big talk, and I would call it like $5 words, versus
yeah.
the newer coach explains things with simplicity. It's very clear. It's almost like common talk. Like anyone can follow it, anyone can digest it. And I'm like, wow, now, our team is in the playoffs, because originally the way they started the season, they weren't even going to make the playoffs. So now they're in the playoffs and they're winning. So nothing changed. The team didn't change. The only thing that changed was the coach. And I'm wondering, from the style of communication, was it clear, concise, and simple? You
Mhm.
hear keep it simple. Was it digestible for the team members to really understand? So I think that's another thing that oftentimes, as I was talking about you being super accomplished, I think being a high achiever sometimes, and I'm throwing myself on that boat too, where we overcomplicate things or we overdo. And how do we break things down at a minute, simple, like, okay, do this, and do this, rather than just like, oh, a bunch of things? Because I think it creates a lot of noise and chaos and scatter. What are your thoughts about and overwhelm?
Absolutely. I think, that's part of the exercise of writing my book was there was incredible science that went behind it.
Mm.
And I could have used giant words and I could have filled the pages with all sorts of content. But, I truly aimed to write one of the shortest self-help books that ever existed because I have been touched by really great self-help books. But I'll tell you what, even a type A personality, I never make it through the full book. It's overwhelming. There's areas and sections that just don't apply. And so I wanted to have something that, and my girlfriends joke that they read it on lunch. It's just very simple. There's real life examples in there so you can understand how the framework would be applied. But it's truly something that it's for those who are facing life's most difficult moments. And what do we experience when we have that sense of uncertainty? It's overwhelm, it's pain, it's darkness, it's feeling lost. So the book really aims to answer the question, what do we do when we are here? What do we do when we are facing life's most difficult moments?
So we have to talk about the book, The Art of Breaking Through. 5 simple steps to take on any challenge and tackle self-doubt.
Mhm.
Tell us more about, you really got me with the self-doubt. Unpack that for me, and even how you came up with that title.
Yeah. So it is truly 5 simple steps. The book takes you through practical exercises, but it's all about defining how we break through challenges, how it works best for you. So I say it's not about my challenges. We'll use those to illustrate how to apply the steps, but it's truly about the challenges that you've faced in your life and making something so specific and meaningful to you that you truly know how to tap into your inner greatness anytime you need it. And it starts out with 5 steps. And if you go through the steps and you take the time to master the art of breaking through, it becomes a simple go to solution. And it takes only moments of time. It's like a switch and you can just flip it. And when faced with uncertainty, whether it's, you know, you're taking on a major life event, new diagnosis, or even just within, as a competitive athlete, I can relate the framework to the uncertainty of a race, of a marathon. How do we optimize performance when faced with uncertainty? It's the confidence, mastering confidence in the face of uncertainty.
Mm. Mastering confidence in the face of uncertainty. It's very interesting. So, at the time of this recording right now, Naomi Osaka is all over the news for the competitive tennis world. And it started by her declining to do any media interviews. And she said that constant commentary from the media that she was not great playing on clay was really starting to break her confidence. So, what is one tip, tool, technique that someone like Naomi Osaka, high competitor, is there something that you suggest or that or any of us could apply to when I know I have days where my confidence is shaken because I'm, as you said, I'm doing something that I'm uncertain about, or that fear of the unknown, or I'm stepping into new uncharted territory. Even when I remember when I launched this podcast, I was like, "Oh, who's going to listen?" Or, what will it be like? Will I keep going? Will I get pod fade? All those different what ifs coming into my head. And I'll tell you how I work through them. But I'm curious to know, like, what technique or tool, or can you give us one of those steps out of the
Yeah.
5 that we can apply?
Well, it sounds like, you have some challenges in mind. So that would be step number one is just defining the challenge and why you want to break through. Step number two is to create an I am a badass list. So to really truly sit down and look at all the different times in your life when you achieve something that you didn't think was possible. And truly taking the time to look through these life events. And there's prompts and questions in the book because, I've spoken to groups of students and they're like, well, my life hasn't been that long so far. I'm like, guys, we'll work through this. Believe me, we all have those badass moments when we truly stop to think about it. But within those moments, when you face those darkest times, step number 3 is to identify your go to phrases. What in the past has been that inner dialogue that helped you push through? So for myself, an example is I got this. And I know that sounds so simple, but it's something that I've applied to my fear of public speaking. And I know and I own and I practice using that phrase. And the whole goal is to take these go to phrases and take one that you want to apply to your current challenge. And so you do practice a little bit of application for seeing like what are those dark moments that are going to take place in this challenge. Picturing yourself applying that go to phrase. And over time, you become so incredible at flipping that switch. So for me, I got this. I walk into the building and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, whole group of people that I'm going to present to. What am I going to do? And I picture the girl in high school speech class who I actually had panic attacks that were so bad that my teacher would say, honey, I'm sure your speech was great, but I had no idea what you were saying. And I would sit there and not talk in high school because I was just literally, what is everyone thinking of me? Shaking. And here I am today, someone who speaks publicly. And it has been this mastering this art of breaking through that fear. But one of those phrases that I root myself in is, I got this. And what happens when I say I got this? I stand up a little bit taller. I roll my shoulders back. I think of all the other times in life where I got this. And it's that shift, an inner dialogue that makes all the difference.
I love that. And I'm thinking about those first steps you talked about. I was like, wow, I've applied those and didn't know it. And yeah,
Absolutely.
I think I say I got this. And my another thing is, come on, come on, come on, Raven, come on, Raven,
Mhm.
just to cheer my own self on. And what another thing I do too, I'm always like, you know what, for me, God hasn't failed you before. He's not going to fail you this time. Like this is
Yeah.
not like, oh, I'm going to fail you. No, he's never failed you before. You got this. And I've been thinking about as you were sharing that, I call it like reframing.
Mhm.
It's not failure, it's feedback. It's not losses, it's lessons. Just taking it all as information and recognizing that what you're doing, as you talked about, you're getting in front of these kids and audiences and teaching and sharing, it's of service. Like you
Exactly.
have something inside of you. You have a knowledge, you have a gift, you have information so great that everyone that is appropriate to hear this message needs to hear it. They need what you have. And that is what gets me out of like, okay, who's going to listen? Do you really want to do it? Or there's days where even when it comes to like recording or making videos or talking or sharing or getting on a stage, it's like, today is not my best day, but I'm going to push through because I'm of service and what I have, someone needs. And they've been waiting. I always say like there's like an audience for your anointing. There's someone that needs to hear what you have to share. So I love that. That is so good. Yeah, I didn't reckon. Yeah, I definitely say come on, Raven, and you got this. You got this. But
Yeah.
even oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, to what you were sharing, there are many, many painful, dark moments in our journey, but in even experiences of losing friends in combat at a very young age, I'm able to take some of those go-to phrases and apply them moving forward. And just, we experienced Memorial Day, and it could have been a day where I was just, I mean, it's hard. It's hard as a military family. When everyone's out at their barbecues and you just are missing those that have gone before us. And, here I am a mom and I've got little people running around and, my husband's a little down and I'm like, you know what? No, like we will find joy in today. And this go-to phrase that the pastor said at our friend's funeral, it's live today to honor the fact that Terry, our friend, no longer has the ability to do so. Live your life today in honor of him. And that is a go-to phrase that I apply to a lot of different areas of life when it's really truly painful and dark. And my dad was in the hospital with COVID and we almost lost him. And
Mhm.
so, no, I can be a light in this darkness. I can live today to the fullest. And so these go-to phrases, it just truly becomes a tool in your toolbox that it makes you a relentless powerhouse. And I know that sounds kind of like a lot of words and we all talk about our inner greatness but really like know for yourself what works best for you. That's a huge in all of my wellness coaching, what works for you. It's not the diet that your sister's doing or your neighbor or all these things like know and own what works for you. Simple. It sounds so practical. Like really, I didn't like other health coaches are like, oh, I didn't think of that. Like I had to write an 800-page book, but sometimes just those simple things, just root ourselves in them.
That's good. And speaking of your toolbox, what, from a wellness perspective, I'm curious to know what you do with your clients or what your major focus is on as it relates to wellness and being able to incorporate wellness into mastering your goals, because there's definitely and one word I'm trying to actually move away from is the hustle, the grind, oh, just overwork yourself. I'm trying to move away from that. Again, back to focusing on the critical few. How can I accomplish the most with putting in great effort, but not wearing myself out or burning myself out? So I'm curious to know, from your perspective, how can we marry that mastering our goals, right? And it requires action, it requires diligence, but
Mhm.
doing it from a healthy state of being.
So it's a strategic hustle. That is what I have been working through with myself. And, you know, I tend to live life out loud. And on my blog, breakingthroughwellness.com, I am writing content for myself most of the time because I'm trying to bring myself back to planet Earth. It's something that worked for a client in the past or a takeaway, a golden nugget of information that I've learned in my career experience, but I've got to hold myself accountable to it, or I've experienced something recently that it's like, what, I'm going to take this back to simple and realistic and a way someone can take this information and customize it to find what works best for them. So it truly is about the strategic hustle and stopping to ask yourself those key questions. What makes you come alive? What makes you experience joy? And what is your one small step in the right direction? It doesn't have to be, I'm going to do 50 things to try and lose weight today. What's the one small step that you're going to master this week? And next week, let's talk about something else. But we're going to have to rewrite our story like every single day. That is, we have to recognize that we might go in with a game plan. We might say, this is the one thing I'm going to do. But guess what? Obstacles appear, major life events, as well as within the context of one day. So be flexible, realistic, and one small step. Because maybe that small step has to shift, even in the context of a day.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel like there's days where I'm like, I call it my top three. These are my top three that I want to accomplish. And I feel good about my day. And even with, because I used to start off with like a laundry list, and then I feel real bad about myself. It's like, oh, you didn't accomplish, the 283 things that were on your list. So now I've condensed it, back to being realistic. I've condensed it to my top three. And as you
Mhm.
talk about being flexible, some things throughout the day move things around. Maybe something that was in the top three gets bumped till tomorrow because now there's a fire or there's something that's an emergency or just something that um, is more important for the time. So I think that is super important as you were sharing. And before I ask my final question, where can we find you online?
I'm at breakingthroughwellness.com. That is my simple and realistic ways to live a vibrant, healthy life, and just sharing my experience, all those tips, tricks, and tools from throughout my personal journey, reversing my own diagnoses, as well as working throughout the spectrum of health and wellness. I also host free masterclasses, so subscribe to that website for those updates. I do have my Art of Breaking Through Academy, which is the expansion of my book. Because as simple as the book is, if we really want to master the art of breaking through and have that simple go-to solution, this is the way. We'll work together, we'll define your how, and you will have that simple go-to solution for the rest of your life to maximize time, energy, and confidence when you need it the most. So,
Love it, love it. And
yeah,
as you were talking about your blogging, something came to mind, and I had to share as you gave your website and you were talking about you write some of those things for yourself. I was like, you're a woman of my own heart because I do something similar. When I post on social, people are like, "Oh, that was so good. That was so motivational." It's like, "Oh, that message was for me."
yes, exactly. Oh, it
So
sounds like
you may have thought it was for you. I'm glad you got something out of it. I just had to say that because as you were talking, I'm like, oh, I do that. But I'm like, this message for me is for me right now in the season or the moment or the day that I'm having. I'm glad other people got something out of it. But so I look forward. I can't wait to check out your blog. So that's awesome. And
yeah,
the
and
final question. Oh, go ahead. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, I do post on social media. I'm at Breaking Through Wellness on Instagram. And, that same thing. I used to like post and then run, it was like, oh, here's some great content, use it and take it if you need it. But now that I'm, more shifting into my business, I'm going to be sharing more in a like regular cadence and all that good stuff. A little bit more themed and thought out. But again, it's in the feedback from others saying like this resonated with me. I needed to hear this. Thank you for sharing. And this exercise of becoming more honest and authentic and just telling it kind of like it is in my experience and having others share theirs. It's just a beautiful exercise. So I'm so glad to hear. And I love the content you're putting into the world. So I think we'll live life out loud together online.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And my final question is what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your reset?
Mm. All right. So I'm going to take a quote from my book, and it is never forget that we all hold an amazing superpower, and that's the ability to rewrite our story at any point in time. However,
Mhm.
I must say that I have recognized that not only do we need to rewrite our story in these major life pivots or when facing an obstacle, but it's within the context of a single day. Sometimes, even those little challenges pop up day to day. So, what do we do when we're there? Have a go to solution. Maybe it's not the 5-step framework on my book, but find something that works for you. Maximize that confidence when you have to rewrite your story because change is life. Life is beautiful. It's perfectly imperfect, but we have to know how to navigate it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Louise.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, start with three small questions. What makes you come alive? What makes your experience enjoyable? What is your one small step in the right direction? Wonderful. I am Raven M. Harris everywhere, and my mission is to add value daily. Follow me at Raven M. Harris on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and share this message. Text it or email it to a friend who needs to hear this. Because remember, our reset is always available to you.